everybody, I am Danny Otto. Welcome into another episode of That Recap Show. Now, before we get into the episode, just want to issue major spoiler alert. We are going to be going over everything that happened in episode 3 of the She-Hulk series. So if you haven't seen that episode yet, you may want to pause this video, head over to Disney Plus, watch that, and then come back and enjoy the breakdown. Now, with that out of the way, let's start the show.
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
Joining with me to break down everything from episode 3 of the She-Hulk series, it's Jon Jon Rico!
Hi!
Hi!
What's up?
So, everything. So many things are up. All of the things are up. Episode 3 of She-Hulk has just officially aired. And I feel like, it wasn't overhyped. It's going to break the internet. It's breaking the internet currently because of what happened in this episode.
Yeah.
And it was not what we were expecting that was going to break the internet. So that gives me hope that there are multiple episodes of this series that are going to break the internet with what's going to happen. Right off the bat, I do like that we finally got the scene from the trailer where she's driving and she says, just let me get this straight. It's not going to be just a cameo fest with all these special guests, except for Bruce and Wong. And Abomination and like all of these.
Yeah,
I do like that we finally got that one, but there's so many other people that we kind of already know are going to be in this series, so I can't wait for more cameos. But the cameos we did get in this episode, amazing. We finally got Wong, which I was really excited about in this episode in particular, because I mean at this point Wong is the glue that is holding together Phase 4 of the MCU and the MCU in general. He's got connections in some of the biggest movies in general of Phase 4 and in the MCU in general, I think. I mean, No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness and Shang-Chi and the Eternal. Like, it's all Wong all the time, basically. He's very busy, is all I'm saying.
He's a busy dude.
Yeah, especially after the events of Multiverse of Madness. Strange is probably still off-world in another dimension at this point, doing whatever Strange is going to be doing with Clea. I do like that, we got some comedy from Wong. Not that we haven't before. Even our introduction to Wong in Doctor Strange 1, like the first Doctor Strange movie, he was listening to Beyonce while
he's generally a funny character.
Yeah.
Whether he's trying to be or not, but he's
exactly
a funny character within the MCU.
Exactly. Like, he doesn't try to be funny, but sometimes he just is. Like, one of my favorite scenes of the first Doctor Strange is when he is listening to Beyonce in that movie, like just in that part. And I mean, it has nothing to do with the scene, except that it just refers back to a conversation that him and Strange had earlier in the movie.
Yeah, one names, basically.
Yeah, I just thought it was funny. Anyway, but I'm still Team She-Hulk. I think this has been a good series, and I've been looking into it more as like a comedy and a sitcom, and I think it's really been playing that role very well. And I think episode 3 is no exception. I think we got more of the sitcomediness. I was trying to combine two things.
A situational comedy?
Yes. Situational comedy. No. Yeah. But I really do think we leaned even harder into the sitcom theme of like this. And I think in a great way. I'm really enjoying it. And I'm really enjoying that we're also getting underlying storylines. Like, in the last episode, we just got a couple of references to where Bruce is going and what's going on. So we're kind of just, leading more and more breadcrumbs down that storyline. And now we're getting more and more kind of, Abomination storylines. We're getting storylines of other smaller characters also that are kind of like, just kind of introducing us to how the world of the MCU isn't just the Avengers anymore. type of thing. It's
Right.
all of these characters that like we just didn't have time or place to kind of have just pop in, and now they all are. And I think that's what kind of makes this a perfect series right now, because we can get those street level things and we can get those street level problems that, catfishing. Like that's what we got this episode, just like catfishing. And I think it's a good series to do that. But those were some of my initial impressions for episode 3. What about you? What were some thoughts that you had for this episode?
I thought this was a pretty good episode. I loved all the stuff with Emil Blonsky and Jen, of course, him being kind of like the situation that provided the comedy of this, episode. There we go, sitcom. But so yeah, of course, this episode is all about that whole parole hearing and how Jen's gonna help get Emil, free of prison to go be with his lovely 7 soulmates. Which I loved the line where he goes, "They are my better eighths," which is just like a really funny take on the better half line, of course. But yeah, I just think like Tim Roth was just killing it in these last 2 episodes and his appearance. Is really cool to see him back in that role again.
Yeah,
And it's just still kind of like that whole underlying question of like what his real motives are at the end of the day. But on top of that, I kind of like that this episode is kind of giving us like a look into like the bigger picture of the overall She-Hulk story. Um, which is, I think where we've been kind of spending these first few episodes kind of like establishing where she fits in the overall MCU, like, how she'll interact with all these different characters that we know, but there's also the actual like big story within the show itself that's going to forward her
yeah.
own progress. And we might get some actual glimpses of an actual big bad, which we'll talk about later on. But yeah, I think that we're finally getting some actual like, a She-Hulk story set up within the show as opposed to just like, who is She-Hulk going to run into this week?
Yeah, exactly. And I love that you gave us a tease for
Yes, what I do.
what's to come in our very own video, which She-Hulk's been teasing plenty of things throughout episodes and the series in general. So perfect tease. You want to get to some big takeaways?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. I'm gonna kick us off with this because just like I was saying in like the initial stuff and everything, the first thing I have to say is I love the courtroom scene. I I love how it was one of Jen's other coworkers from her old firm, and
Yeah, the dude.
and she ends up being a witness, and the only reason they won is because she told the entire court and everyone and like the judge and everyone how delusional he was,
For
and that
her honest opinion of him.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and how like it was easy enough for him to believe that he was actually dating a real celebrity, and that this was all like this wasn't. He thought it was real the whole time. And this is kind of the scene in question, and this is at one point because so this is what did you say? It was a light elf.
Yeah, they said it was an Asgardian light elf or something like
Yeah,
that. Because there's the dark elves and then there's light elves.
right. And
Right.
and I just love at one point in the court, she starts giving an inspirational speech saying that New Asgard isn't a place,
Yeah,
it's a
she starts
people.
reciting Thor's speech.
Yeah, and the judge goes, I don't want any Thor inspirational quotes here. Like it
Yeah, they're
was,
not admissible in court, I think
yeah,
is what he said, which is really funny. Like
yeah,
the way
just
they were talking about, like she has diplomatic immunity. He was like, "I don't work here. That isn't New Asgard. It's just no
exactly.
diplomatic immunity here." Yeah, I like
But
that. That's all really good.
I love just the little pokes at things that worked in other movies but don't work here type of thing. It's just little those little kind of pokes at other things, but a comedic stance on that poke it is perfect. I just
Right.
it's pulling things in without pulling things in and just kind of making fun of itself. It's great. I loved that. Um, and then we find out who I mean we found out before the courtroom scene, but who Jen's old coworker thought he was actually dating happened to be Megan the Stallion.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere, and you can see it. Okay, so this is a shot of you can see behind the Asgardian elf.
Hmm.
No Megan the Stallion.
Yeah, she
And
wasn't
then
there.
boom, same
Boom, she
same
pops up.
placement. But
Yeah.
up until this very second, I was like, oh, it's just gonna be a running gag. It's funny. It's the same running gag as like, where she's always talking about Captain America and all of this stuff. It's
Right.
just gonna be one of those jokes that's never gonna really happen, or maybe it's gonna be like a news article as an Easter egg somewhere else or something crazy
Yeah.
like that. And then she pops up at the end of the trial and said
Hmm.
there's only one Megan the Stallion. And I thought that was perfect. And it's such a sitcom-y, perfect, like chuckle thing. Like it was just it had me. And I was like, well played. Well
Yeah.
played She-Hulk episode. Like Perfect. I was not expecting that at all. I was not expecting this to be the cameo, one of the cameos we were gonna have in
Yeah,
an episode.
well, we did get like a news story that she had basically been confirmed to be in the show, but I didn't know it was gonna be like this next episode. I thought we were just gonna like see her somewhere along the line,
Yeah,
and she would like when She-Hulk kind of embraces her fame a little bit, like as you sort of see in this episode. I thought we'd maybe see her there, but then she just once I started hearing him when he said like thought she was making a sound, like oh she's gonna show up now, isn't she? And I thought yeah, I thought the shapeshifter was actually gonna be Megan Thee Stallion, but no, it was just Megan Thee Stallion like in the
yeah,
flesh.
yeah. That was
Very
just
sitcom-y.
yeah. I thought that was perfect, and I do remember us like talking about how she was confirmed. I thought maybe it was going to be like She Hulk was a celebrity at some point, and
Yeah.
she was just going to be end up going to her concert, and it was going to like be a quick blurb or something just really quick like that.
Mhm.
But I was not expecting this, and you know what? I was not expecting the end credit scene. So boom.
Yeah.
Big spoiler. We got a crazy. At this point, I think every episode is just going to have an end credit scene, and they're
Yeah, I think
all.
they've confirmed that.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know they confirmed
Mhm.
that, but I'm
Yeah.
sure as hell waiting after every single episode now. But I was not expecting the end credit scene that we got, and it was amazing. It was
It's very
hilarious.
fitting for Jennifer's character
Yeah,
too, because I've been reading the She-Hulk comics that this is inspired of, and it's very much in line with that Jennifer in general. So it's yeah, pretty well played on their part.
You are way more fun than my last lawyer. I will kill for you, Megan Thee Stallion. Dial it back.
dial it back.
Yeah.
Dial it
Yeah.
back. I thought it was
Yeah.
great. And I like how Jen's boss, like the whole scene just kind of kicks off. You hear the music and everything, and Jen's boss just goes, all right. And
Yeah,
then
I'm not
just
that
like,
bad. Yeah, no thanks. Yeah.
anyway, those were some of my big takeaways. Rico, what were some of your big takeaways from episode 3?
Okay, yeah. So I got a few things here before I get to my main
Go.
takeaway. We had some pretty cool meta humor in this. This show kind of gives me like the boys vibes in a weird
Oh,
way
yeah.
because the way how like the superhero world is just so like natural and weird to everyone living around them. Like of course an Asgardian light elf is shape shifting around and doing that. Like it's all treated so normally now. And just the same way that like superheroes are treating that as just everyday things and the way of the boys. So I think that's kind of cool how, She-Hulk does this meta style humor probably better than anything else in the MCU right now. Uh, but one of the other things, bringing it all back to meta humor, the whole scene of like, all the weird like toxic comments coming in, like where it's like, oh man, they took away Hulk's manhood and give it to a woman, and
Yeah.
it's all that stuff. Like you've definitely seen these comments on the internet before the show even came out, and the fact that they're like, yeah, no, we already knew what you're gonna say, and we're saying it in the show, and then like you can't help but be like kind of tip your hat to that kind of humor. I think that was really funny stuff.
Yeah.
And also the when she's walking out of the courtroom after the parole hearing, and that there's all the questions being asked to Jennifer, and one of them is actually a reference to her real origin, whereas like, did you get your powers in a mafia hit gone wrong? Which is actually how in the book she gets her powers to begin with. She gets
Oh.
a mafia hit gone wrong, and of course Bruce's blood's transfusion that saves her life. Um, but so the end of the episode when she's gotten her courtroom victory, she's helped her coworker get a courtroom victory by just telling the truth about her old coworker. um she gets home, she gets out of the car, and she's jumped by a group of 4 guys who turns out to be the Wrecking Crew, the MCU's take on the Wrecking Crew, which I thought was pretty cool, which is kind of like this little C-level group of Hulk villains that kind of group up and usually just get their asses kicked by the Avengers in some way or another in the comic books. um but I liked that we kind of seeing them for the first time, and there's that whole interaction where like she gets scared, but then she realizes she's the Hulk, and she's like, "Oh yeah, no, I can kick your asses," and it's like it's really funny, really good interactions between that, and then the whole like, "Did you steal your stuff from like an Asgardian construction company?" And the guy's just like, "Yeah."
That was perfect. I love
Yeah.
that line.
So I thought
Yeah.
that was really funny. Um, but it looks like at one point one of the Wrecking Crew guys has a very big needle, and he tries to stab Jen with it, but of course the needle just bends because Hulk skin. And they abort, and they get in the car, and like they this whole thing like, yeah, no, I couldn't even pierce that green skin. And they talk about a boss who who basically hired them. But we'll get a little bit there, but there's a little tease of what I'm talking about.
sorry. I was quick.
Yeah, you got a little ahead of me.
Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry, I got a little excited. I got too excited.
Oh, good.
But yeah, I mean, I totally have to agree. I loved that interaction with the Wrecking Crew, just because like there's jokey lines in there, but just like you were saying, a solid kind of piece of the She-Hulk storyline where she's actually starting to embrace. I felt like in that scene, embrace her She-Hulk side, because she kind of did, like you said, she did that thing of, oh wait, I don't need to be scared. I'm She-Hulk. I can beat him up type of thing. And I just feel like we're slowly seeing that progression where she's coming to terms with like, this is her life now, instead of her trying to deny it. Because I mean, you saw like one or two scenes before that, she was in the bar and kind of complaining that she just wanted to go back to nothingness of a normal, her normal lawyer life, basically. And then we get to that scene. So I think we're slowly, without them saying it, just context wise, she's slowly starting to accept and do that. And I think they did it in a perfect way to not make it like, oh, this is what she's doing now. She's accepting it. We're not getting like this big montage of her, fighting crime or anything, but she's starting to feel a little bit more comfortable. She didn't run away. She didn't like, you know what I mean?
Right. It all goes back to that conversation that she has with Blonsky at the end of the trial, where he's like, you shouldn't run away from the story. Like this is basically your time to do it. And she's kind of just like, okay. And then she goes on the TV show, of course, where it's like, it did a whole thing with her, and then like, okay, afterwards they'll give us her diet and training exercise. She's like, well, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. She goes, what?
Yeah, she's kind of learning that there's going to be more to this than she anticipated. And it's also kind of a cool turn from the books, because in the books she's already been She-Hulk, and she's actually like a security threat for the Avengers, because she's just bringing boys home left and right, like going to parties and stuff like that. Like she's basically like female Tony Stark, just like partying and banging dudes at the Avengers mansion over and over. So I feel like we're starting to get that transition to that like more confident side of her as She-Hulk. And of course, we've seen some trailer footage of her doing that doing the old Tinder swiping with some dudes anyway. So it's going to be quite a transition for her character going forward.
Yeah, we got some wild episodes to come. The last thing I have to mention before we get into some predictions, sorry, I got ahead of myself by throwing to your prediction materials early. But one thing we cannot pass up is this wonderful shot where we get like Wong's basically his LinkedIn, or probably a version, like an MCU version of LinkedIn, and we get to see his employment history.
Yeah.
And he was a Target sales associate for 9 years in Karmatosh, Nepal.
Absolutely. Pretty wild stuff. I guess he's from Nepal, though. That we were talking about this earlier. Like,
right.
He was working at Target for 9 years before he was a librarian. I don't know, he was doing 2 full-time jobs at once, but that would be it would make sense if he's from Nepal, I think.
Yeah. I don't know. I just thought that like those little kind of things where like there's just a shot of a phone and stuff like that. I mean, we've already seen some in the past where, we saw Jen's phone with Captain America's butt.
Mm-hmm.
We saw like little side articles. Like now it's just like every episode I'm just kind of like looking for Easter eggs in everything.
Whoa. Here I come. Oh, here I come.
I just think it's perfect how they're doing stuff like that, and I'm all for it. I think it's great. But would you like to get to some predictions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. All right, why don't you kick us off, because I am so ready to hear this prediction.
Yeah, so I was talking about the Wrecking Crew being hired by someone, and as we saw in the picture before, that person that I think it could be would actually have to be the leader, aka the Dr. Sam Stearns, who we first saw in the 2008 Hulk movie. So I think that would be a really a good way to tie everything back to the old Hulk movie from 2008 with Edward Norton. Seeing as that we got the Blonsky connection now, and I think to me it just makes a lot of sense, because there's a lot yet to be resolved with that character. Like, we were teased with this origin story of the leader, and then we got nothing from it. And so 15 years later, it's like this would be the perfect time for him to kind of come back into not only Jen's story but Bruce's story as well.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was the one experimenting on Bruce's blood all this time before all this happened, like, makes sense that he probably has been using this time to either perfect some kind of formula or whatever. Like he still has a lot of data on him, I would imagine. So um he's been, kind of just hiding in the wing under the wings the entire time, like waiting to kind of make his big return. This could be the time to do it. And why not use a little crew like the Wrecking Crew to try and distract that DNA from him, but um he's not gonna make his presence known so quickly. And I think he's a good person to kind of make like a big bad of a She-Hulk show because it ties into the whole overall Hulk mythos and is also a pretty solid villain for her overall to deal with in the future.
Yeah, I am all for it, and that's why I got so. Let's go into it right away, type of thing. I think it's a great theory, and I am all for it. I would love to see that. I'd love to have him kind of as an overarching, like, bigger bad in this in general. And yeah, I think that's great. I mean, the only kind of prediction theory that I kind of really had, it is kind of similar to yours, is trying to figure out who that, that
Right.
boss is, type of thing. I went a little bit of a different route than you, only because I'm trying to think of other future properties we have going, and still could totally play in on both parts of this. So I would be happy if parts of both of these are right. But what I was thinking more of was, we've been thinking maybe we're gonna get like Abomination in the Thunderbolts. But
Mhm.
what if the boss, I'm not saying it is Val, but what if it's someone connected with Val, and whoever the boss is trying to get the blood to make a serum for is someone that is going to contract this newer Hulk out to Val's Thunderbolts. I'm thinking maybe in terms of a red Hulk or even a different color Hulk, but basically a Hulk that's going to end up being a threat, where maybe even going full circle, maybe even we have to get an Abomination She-Hulk team up to deal with them down further down the line, type of thing. So that basically we have this where Abomination really is now like reformed. He's become and it goes full circle where he is now in control and he has to fight an out of control version of another Hulk, type of thing. I think it would be a crazy story arc in general, type of thing, and it could tie in the Thunderbolts, it could tie in Val, it could tie in She-Hulk. It's just a bunch of kind of different storylines that I think it could tie in. I don't know how we could get there, but it was just one of those things that, like, in my head, I was like, this would be cool if we kind of got that story arc with Abomination, kind of showing that he is now on this course of he's in complete control, type of thing.
Yeah, I can see it. The one thing I'm kind of noticing with the Abominations arc is that there's been stuff in the past where like he does kind of go reformed. Like there's a one point where he leads like a creative writing class, which is kind of
Yeah,
funny given the haikus. But there's always something that draws him back into being the Abomination, like the bad Abomination again. So I'm kind of wondering when that's going to happen for him, more so than thinking he's going to have like a heroic arc, more so in the story. You know what I mean?
yeah. No, I totally, like, that's why it's a prediction. I have no idea if actually like, going to happen or anything like
Right.
that. But I just think it would be interesting to see that kind of a full circle type of thing. And because I mean, some of his answers are kind of shifty, but I'm
Yeah.
wondering if it's like sitcom shifty, where they're making it seem shifty on purpose, but really in the end, he really is a decent guy now, type of thing.
Mhm.
Um, because they're playing that line really well. Because like some of his answers where he's like, "Yeah, I'm reformed," like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
just kind of the way he answers makes me kind of be like, "Are you really? Are you
Yeah,
really
well, the
reformed?"
fact that she has to tell him that you have to sound like you actually have remorse for your actions and stuff like
Right.
that, yeah, it's all set up for what I think is gonna be him eventually coming back to the old man that he once was, or just he was always that person to begin with, and he's just been playing people.
Right. The other thing I was going to ask you is, what's the inhibitor thing that they were talking about that he was going to have to wear? It's not Bruce's, because Bruce's was a prototype that was to keep him human state. So what's this inhibitor that they were mentioning at his parole hearing?
No idea.
Oh, no idea. I was hoping maybe you had a little bit
Unless
more
they
insight
have
on that.
some, like, I'm trying to think if they've had anything that's inhibited. Oh, they do have inhibitor stuff, from the raft. What remember they had to put it on Wanda, so they have power inhibitors in other ways. So I think they're just saying like he's got to wear a power inhibitor in some way.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that Bruce just had one made specifically for himself.
Yeah, well, he said
they've
that was
had
a
Abomination
prototype.
long enough. They probably have a way to neutralize him at this point.
Very cool. I
Yeah.
just didn't know, so it was a question that I definitely wanted to ask you, just in case you had a little bit more insight on it. I wasn't sure.
That's my only guess. Like, yeah, just based on the fact that they had this thing on the collar on Wanda in the Civil War, like they have access to that tech. I think
They have something. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, it's definitely something worth paying attention to. I want to see if we get Abomination turning up in any other part of the series, and with his 7 life partners. I guess.
his better aids.
Yeah, his better 7, his better 8s, whatever. But anyway, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. What did you think of episode 3? What did you think of our secret cameo? And what did you think of the end credit scene? Did you find it absolutely incredible? Were you expecting that to actually happen? Is this real life? Anyway, and as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our video releases. Bye, everybody!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.